All right, well, let's jump right in. Today we're talking about obviously a very, very hot topic in the music industry, very important topic, all about AI. We already kind of talked about there's so many different things to talk about. So let's jump right into AI tools that are being used. Specifically, Suno has been a really big topic of conversation. So for those who haven't used AI tools like Suno, what are they? How have they been used? Let's start there. Let's explain what's happening basically in the music industry.
Well, there's a lot of AI tools out there. I'll talk about Suno. Maybe X can hit on some of the vocal ones and in production as well. Yeah. But Suno really has emerged as the leader in AI, prompt generated music. Essentially, it's created this entirely new term of people that I wouldn't call music producers, but they're almost called music designers, where they're people that just get really good at putting in a text prompt. Hey, create me a country song, modern country song, up tempo, about, keep it kind of lifestyle, fun, trucks, energy, beer, whatever. You just put the keywords in it, and it spits out this complete body of work. You can also do the same thing with an instrumental. You can have it create instrumentals. And then the other thing that is kind of a newer update with Suno, even since we last chatted AI, is that you can input an audio file, such as a work tape or a voice memo. Could just be you sitting with your iPhone. You play one pass down, sing a song you wrote, and then load that into Suno, and it takes it and produces basically a full-blown demo. The thing that you really have to tweak with it. You may have to run it through like 10 or 15 times and like tweak the prompts a little bit until you kind of get the thing you're looking for. So it's a little janky, but man, the feelings behind it are all over the map. I mean, in talking to other producer friends of mine, anything from complete despair and my entire career is over, this is going to replace me, all the way to the opposite end with songwriters who don't play instruments, and they're like, this is awesome. I can get demos done basically in 2 minutes by uploading a work tape, and it's pitchable, The limitation with Suno is it's great in the demo stage, it's great in the idea stage, but once you make it into production and master, that to me is when I would start seeing red flags. Legally, quality-wise still, it is lacking. I mean, you ask anybody who knows music, it can capture the sound, but not the soul. I think that's the big distinction with these tools like Suno, is it can capture the sound, but not the soul. It's really just regurgitating, all this learning data that it's basically, that's another hot topic, is where did Suno learn all this stuff? Like it had to have listened to Universal, Sony, Warner, all the big catalogs. Like where else would it have gotten the songs? And so there is a big ongoing lawsuit. There has been since last time we did the podcast as well. It will probably drag out another year or two until they come to some settlement. But yeah, Universal, Warner, Sony suing Suno and other companies for illegal use of their catalog for training data. So a lot of mixed feelings around it. Just from the tech side, it's pretty insane. I mean, I got to say, like, taking my own ego and whatever pride out of it, it's pretty crazy how quickly it can do what it does. But, there was a tool called Udio that was out there that really Suno is the only one that I hear about. Yeah. They seem to be so far, it just the tech and the quality of the output and the ease of use and the quickness. Suno really is just kind of the heads and tails leader in the market of that in terms of just AI generated songs. So maybe X can talk about the vocal side, because that's another big piece.
We use, everyone's got their own personal tastes in it, because there's like Lala's was one that was huge for a while. We use Automy quite a bit now, and it's pretty insane. It's not as, I don't feel like the vocal side of things is as disruptive as like full track creation, because it is relying a lot more on the human input into it, and then it's just kind of regurgitating like just a processed signal back to you. But a lot of times, I mean, we use it with artists all the time that are just like, they don't want to do harmonies, they don't have time to do harmonies, and it's just a quick way we can just make it in Pro Tools using like Melodyne, and it sounds all wacky and like very processed, and then you just run it through Automie, and it's like, oh, there's a very organic, natural sounding voice that now we can tweak and manipulate to pair up alongside the original singer, and it works and sounds flawless. I mean, there's no more, for a long time, people were creating harmonies. That's nothing new. But you had to kind of hide it because it sounded so processed and so
Sounded
harsh.
fake.
And yeah, it was just like, yeah, there's just no realism to it. And now it's, even with like fully synthesized voices, like they have these generic like singer names. They give them names like Mark and Brian and, you know,
Yeah.
who like they're just picking out a baby name generator or
Yeah,
something. But,
yeah.
but just like with these just crazy random just generated voices, it sounds incredible.
Yeah, and to be clear, these are synthetic voices. These
Yeah.
are not models of like Morgan Wallen or Michael Jackson or Dolly
Yeah.
Parton. These are just like
Yeah,
synthetic, like
just
male
generic,
vocal.
Yeah.
And so that's where in the legality side of it, and this is all very new, so this could all change. But as far as I understand, you're fine as long as it's just kind of a synthetic model and it's not necessarily trained off the voice data of another singer. And that's where
Yeah.
Automie is great.
Yeah, and that's my understanding of it too. But there are now people that are licensing their own voice out there for you to use or for companies to use. I know like James Earl Jones is a big one that like just did it because he wants to ensure, like he's not in music, but he wants to ensure that in Star Wars his voice is able to be the legacy of like Darth Vader for forever until after he dies. And it's such an interesting time that like that's now a possibility. Or for artists that are like getting older and stuff like that who are like, I want my legacy to continue on too. They have this option now to be like, hey, you can use my voice, or, you know, if my bandmates continue on, I can continue to be the voice of, you know, of the songs moving forwards. I remember when I was a kid, there was this huge thing with like, they discovered all these tapes of John Lennon, and they like they released like 2 Beatles songs in the 90s, and everyone was like freaking out about it because it was such a cool thing that happened. And now that's like, I mean, that doesn't even seem like it's all that crazy of an idea now. People are like preparing for these kinds of things. It's pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, and in production, I mean, the AI tools are improving daily. That's the crazy thing is I feel like once we entered this era of, let's just call it Chat GPT era, which I don't even know how long it's been now, maybe a year, 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 18 months or
18
so. 18
months. And that's the other thing we're going to have to get used to is the speed of improvement and change is just leapfrogging so exponentially, unlike anything I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it's only going to continue that way because things are learning based off of exponential models that get even more exponentially better. Like ChatGPT 5 just came out as of, you know, recording this like yesterday, basically.
Yeah.
And it was reported to be 10 times as powerful as the previous one.
Yeah.
So they're all just kind of leapfrogging each other. And in production, I mean, we're seeing it getting better and better. Waves
Yeah.
is at the front of the pack. You know, with tools like Curves AQ, that's kind of an AI EQ
Yep.
that I'm using a lot. Not necessarily as a shortcut, but as a almost just like a different tone shaping tool. Like I've got this acoustic guitar that sounds like one thing. What if I run it through this AI EQ? It almost spits it out sometimes as like, oh, wow, that sounds like a totally different guitar, and
Yeah.
is sometimes really cool. Sometimes it's not very cool. But it's just another creative way of, and they have, you know, I'm trying to think what other AI. Ozone has AI
Yeah.
mastering that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, Ozone has AI mastering. They use, like, most of the audio companies now use AI in a very just interesting way, especially for just like data analysis. Like there's a lot, they try to streamline anything you're doing. So Waves has a bunch of like noise reduction plugins. I know that sounds kind of boring, but you can pull the room sound out of your record. Like it will sit and it will use an AI algorithm to listen to the voice and then look at everything that's not the voice that's creating the sound around the voice and be able to just pull that out, which for people making records, that's a huge power to have, because
Especially if you're making a record in your bedroom. And
yeah,
it's not
now
like
it
a
takes the room of
treated-
where you are just completely out of the equation and leaves the voice still sounding full without any artifacting, which for a long time was extremely hard to do. Like if you messed up the recording, you messed the whole thing up. Like there was no coming back. And one of the ones I use a lot is I think it's called CR8 with waves, and then Algonaut makes one as well, but like sample finders to where I import my sample library into it. I use one called Atlas, and it just organizes all of it, and then based on the music I'm playing back, when I go to load samples in, it will recommend samples to me, and it's just like, when you have millions of samples, the fact that now I can just click through this list that it's like, hey, based on this, you might like these. And these are all things I own, so it's not generating them or anything. Like, I own the rights to use it in whatever I'm doing. But it just cuts down the time it takes to do things so quickly. Like the AQ thing you were talking about, it's so nice to just put it on, and it's like it sees what you're listening to, and it's just starting to make recommendations. And then you can just start making decisions faster based on those things. You still have to understand what you're doing and where you want it to go and have a vision for it, but the fact that it's just streamlining the process is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it's taking seconds and minutes off of each part of the production process, so that the thing I like about it, as you know, I'm nowhere near X as an engineer and mixer, and knowing the tech and compression curves and EQ, and like I can work my way around it and turn knobs until I think it sounds cool, but I don't oftentimes know all of that. So for me, as a techie person, it makes the whole process feel way more creative, because I'm less thinking about the EQ and the compression settings, and more just making quick decisions. Put it here, that sounds good. Put it here, that doesn't sound good. I'll try something else. It makes the whole process a whole lot more fun for producers and writers. So.
Oh, for sure. And I think with Ozone, the cool thing that they do is they do a lot of tone matching stuff. Like they'll have their AI look at, like, you can put a song in there, and it's not taking any of like the musical data of the song, but it looks at the tonal composition of it, and it will allow you to kind of be like, well, make my song sound the same is a bad term, because people will be like, oh, the chorus now, but like just tonally feel kind of the same.
It makes it in the ballpark.
It puts it in the ballpark, and it's very cool, because then it also shows you what it's like. I like doing it just to see what it's doing. Like I like to run it through something and then see like, this is how it's getting there, just so I can even learn in like records that I love the sound of, like this kind of like shapes. This is how this works. It just gives you a whole nother look into how tools work and everything.
And the last one that I'll say that's a new, and we can keep going down the path, but I'm just having a lot of fun with this stuff. Pro Tools, and I believe Logic too, but I know Pro Tools came out with a new update last week, I believe, as of recording this, where it integrates Splice, which we've talked a lot about Splice. People wouldn't think of Splice as being an AI tool, but it is now, because what we can do now is we can make a selection in Pro Tools of, like, let's say we take a 4-bar section of a chorus or whatever. We just click and drag it into the integrated Splice window. It will analyze it for chordal content, tempo, BPM, feel, style, and it will suggest sounds to use with it, and then you can literally just click and drag them right in. And half the time they're kind of wacky, but the other half the time they're like, these are scary how good they are.
And sometimes wacky is what you need. It might be something you never would have thought would work, and it's like that click of inspiration that's like, oh, there we go.
Well, what's nice is it's real time too,
Yeah.
because you can audition it while you're looping a section. And so that's another big one that I don't know if a lot of people are aware of yet, but I'm pretty sure it's available in Logic and Pro Tools and in Studio One
has
as well.
Yeah,
so
they've got it.
It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's so many different tools, obviously. Everyone has their own nuances, different ways of being used. If you were to kind of consolidate your guys' take then with both the songwriting tools now available, the production tools now available, the ones that are still being created really every day, what would you say are the best use cases? Like, where are they the most helpful and effective these days? And where you started to say just the kind of miss the mark, or you're fearful of them being used maybe in a certain way? Like, where pros, cons?
Well, there's a lot of pros and cons. I'll go first, and X can jump into his thoughts as well too. But I think the best use cases for something like Suno, in my mind, are taking an 8-year-old song that maybe has a dated sounding demo, and rather than going and reproducing the whole thing, I could just take that, load it into Suno, and say, hey, make this like a modern country version, or make this a modern pop version, or make it a completely different style. And you're like, huh, like maybe it'll turn out even cooler with the lyric that I had and the melody that I had. So that's a really good use case, is breathing life into old demos. Even changing singers. Sometimes there's a perception with artist writers, especially in Nashville, that once they've written a song, like I'll take Brad Rempel from High Valley, for example. There was a season, not so much anymore because he's become a really great, successful writer for other artists and just had his first #1 as a writer on another record. But there was a period of time where if his voice was on it, it was hard to pitch because they would think, well, why is he not cutting it for High Valley? People assume if the artist's not cutting their own songs, it must be lesser than. But it can be a really good tool for that, to say, okay, we'll just rerun the Rempel demo through Suno, and it just gives it a new kind of generic country voice.
Sure.
It just makes it pitchable in a new way.
Yeah.
So I think it's really useful, things like Suno in the demo process. Again, I said it before, I'll say it again. Once you get into the master, that's when stuff starts falling apart, because you can't really customize it. You can't tweak it. You can't. Once you start kind of like extracting stems from it, you start to hear, oh, that's actually AI.
Yeah.
And you hear all these weird artifacts and warbles. And not only that, but the legality of it, you don't actually own the content that Suno produces.
Right.
It's in their fine print that anything that's created by Suno is property of Suno's. And so you got to be careful. You got to be careful whether you're having it suggest lyrics. You got to be careful if you're trying to release anything that has part of the samples or sounds or stems that were Suno generated. I would never advise anybody release any of that. There are bands and artists doing this actively. We can maybe get into that here shortly, but I would never advise releasing anything that was like AI derived.
Sure.
So
yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, on the production end, I think it has far more pros than it does cons, just because there's a lot less gray area in terms of like intellectual property and copyright infringement and everything. Because I think on the production side, it's far more utility based. As far as vocal generation and stuff like that goes, that can get into a little bit more of a gray area. But I do know that, like, Seth's been a part of a bunch of like writing camps and stuff, and you have all these people getting together to write songs for one person, and that one person can't sing the demo. They can't sing 40 demos in 2 days, so they'll have AI models of their voice made so they can just hear themselves on it. I think obviously releasing it that way, that returns to the gray area of things. But in terms of, like, we were just talking about the amount of time saved that, like, AI just thinking ahead or showing you the right path, like the way it just removes barriers when you're doing production and doing mixing. I think it's a huge pro. And I think it definitely, like I was saying, can teach people like how to actually use the tools at their disposal, which I think is really positive. The biggest con, I do think, is people just learn to just lean on it too heavily, and you lose that fundamental knowledge that you kind of have to have in order to, like, build a firm foundation in being a producer or being a mixer or whatever. Like, there's a baseline knowledge that you need to have just have like a career you can start to, like, prosper from, because you want to be able to go anywhere and work on something and not be just so limited by, like, well, I don't have this tool with me, I cannot do what I'm supposed to do. Like, there's going to be days your computer breaks down or, something happens, but you still need to perform. And I think there's people that will just lean so heavily onto tools and not bother to have the underlying, like, little bit of knowledge, whether that's, hey, this one tool that I use that's AI driven, I can do the same thing with this thing. Like, even just being able to parse it out for like, I think it's a huge skill to have. And I think a lot of people are just kind of like, oh, I didn't realize that's the same thing. They just don't bother to learn, because they've got a tool that's going to take care of business for them.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say on this too is, man, with AI and music generation, we're in a world where you can generate a track in seconds. It's not minutes, it's literally seconds at this point. So in a world where you can generate a track in seconds, taste is ultimately the thing that becomes the new currency. And that's something that I really believe is the human requirement of it. It's the taste. It's like you're the curator in some regards, because AI could in production suggest a bunch of sounds. It's up to you as the creator, as the artist, as the producer, as a writer, to say no, that one tastes good, no, that one tastes bad. Like it really comes down to that. And that's one thing that, at least as of now, I don't think AI has its own taste. Maybe it will in the future.
Yeah.
But and certainly there's going to be a battle for taste even among AI and among the creators. But you still have to have the human element of it that's curating it and serving up, the best combinations of what AI is sort of helping you craft.
Yeah, absolutely. You started to touch on a little bit ago too, just about the legality of kind of everything that's been going on. Again, you said that you can't distribute creations that are created through AI solely. Let's talk a little bit about how these AI platforms like Suno, for example, are being built. That's been a big topic of conversation, is just what are the ethics behind this? You mentioned that last year a lawsuit had started with kind of the major labels against Suno for them using songs from their catalog. Now there's conversations of potentially those labels actually partnering with Suno and getting a share of the licensing. A lot of those questions are yet to be answered, but what are your guys' thoughts on just the ethics of how the songs have been uploaded to these platforms? Anything you guys have to say on kind of that topic in general?
Well, this is unlike any time in music in history.
Yeah.
We're not just dealing with new tools, we're dealing with new ethical territory altogether. So the book still remains to be written a little bit on it. But the foundation is that it's, if your output, the AI output, what it's creating is trained on existing songs that it doesn't have the license for. It doesn't matter how good the output is. It's built on sand. It's built on something illegal, essentially. Yeah. So I can see what you were saying is where a lot of labels will probably ultimately end up having to go to, and will probably build it into their contracts with their artists. And ultimately distributors like TuneCore are probably going to have this option too. Do you want this to be used for license, or do you want to license this content for training material? Basically, there'll have to be some version of that where you can opt in or opt out of that. And how that's monetized, who in the world knows? I have no idea how they'll determine, something that was stylistic. I mean, that's where the gray area is going to be very tricky to navigate. But I can see labels, this is kind of our Napster moment all over again, where, Napster comes along, music pirating happens, labels and attorneys are scrambling to figure out what does the law actually need to look like around it? And that's really where we're at. So I think people are scrambling to catch up, but they're going to have to, at some point, reach a place of opt-in, opt-out, give the creator the choice. Yeah. Or in many cases, the label may ultimately be the one making the choice, and the creator doesn't really have a choice if they're signing a bad deal. Or, there's going to be new AI clauses in artist recording contracts of things like, name and likeness have been in contracts for a long time, where a label can use the artist's name and likeness kind of really however they want to promote the music. There's going to have to be AI clauses in contracts now. So I don't know how that works. Do people go back and add a clause to it after the fact? But going forward, it's going to absolutely be a big piece of it. And so we're going to be staying, we have to, as creators, we have to be on the cutting edge of knowing what the legalities and the ethics of it are, because we always want to be a step ahead of that. And ultimately just, I think there's always going to be a desire for humans and consumers to want to know the music they're listening to was created by another person.
Right.
There will be people who don't care about that. There will be people who probably are just going to be fans of AI music and they don't really care where it comes from. But I think when you're talking just straight up the art piece of it, I mean, you can create a beautiful image using Grok Imagine now in seconds, and you don't have the same appreciation as like, wow, somebody like slaved over this and worked their craft for 20, 30 years to be able to create something, and then they offered it up. I mean, there's nothing really musically that a human can do technically that a computer can't recreate or create, but people are still making the choice. Like, we want to go see people play music live.
Yeah.
Even though like that chord progression that guitar player is playing on the stage very easily could be replaced with AI.
Sure.
Who would really care about it though?
Yeah.
And the flip side is there are really cool case uses where, you know, Bjorn Ulvaeus from the band ABBA was a big part of creating this show that's essentially like a virtual hologram show of the band ABBA. I never know how to pronounce this, ABBA or ABBA.
I too fall.
I always say ABBA, but yeah, I have no idea.
I say ABBA.
Yeah.
But they have this show running in London now that's a hologram show, and they of course used AI to create all this stuff. And there's real musicians on stage, but you can basically go see ABBA live, like as they were in their heyday, which is crazy.
Wow.
So so there are some really cool case uses where it actually does connect people on like a very human. Well, human might not be the right word, but it's an innovative level of engaging
interactive sort of experience.
Yeah.
You bring up a really interesting point of just other case studies too that have kind of been in the news, people have been talking about, and one of those is a artist called The Velvet Sundown, which essentially ended up kind of coming out as an entirely AI curated artist. What are your guys' thoughts on that? I guess in general, what are your guys' takes? What were your guys' reactions when hearing about that group?
Yeah. I thought it was cool. I mean, I thought the music was cool. You know, it's just like, to me, it's just like background music. Like there wasn't anything super unique, super original about it, but it was like interestingly crafted songs. It had a very like, every song had a vibe to it. Like, oh, this has a cool like atmosphere to it. So it's something I could have put on and cooked dinner and been like, oh, I'm super happy with it. And then there was all the drama about like, oh, this person's exposing them as being like an AI band. And then they're like, we're not an AI band. And then later they're like, we're an AI band. And, you know, it's like, okay, that was as far as I really engaged with it. I do then there were people like, well, we've been deceived. Like I was enjoying music that wasn't made by a human. And it's kind of like, well, they said that they pretty much curated the whole thing, but it was synthetically like produced. Synthetically made pretty much. So I guess that's kind of a gray area of like, well, they obviously put this together and like focused the instruments into doing what they're doing. I mean, as far as AI music goes, it's incredibly good sounding. Like it doesn't typically AI songs sound like pretty thin, kind of wobbly. Like you can be like, oh, this is AI. Their stuff, like upon deeper listening, is like, okay, I could see it. But like just passively listening, it was very plausible that it was something like genuine, at least to my ears.
Yeah, and people listening on their iPhones, which is how so many people are, like it's going to be passable.
Yeah.
Just because they're not critically listening. It's interesting, even since they were exposed, whatever you want to call it, that they've kind of changed their bio on Spotify. Even it says The Velvet Sundown is a synthetic music project guided by human creative direction and composed, voiced, and visualized with the support of artificial intelligence. Not quite human, not quite machine. The Velvet Sundown lives somewhere in between.
Yeah. I think that sums it up great because then you see like on the flip side of it, you have artists like Gorillaz or Daft Punk and stuff like that where they hide their identity and perform music. So it's kind of like just flip-flopping that whole thing, whereas like they're actually musicians performing it, whereas this kind of is like
there are people prompting it.
It's people prompting it, but it's kind of like the same thing, really. So it's just interesting. Now, the fact that they released it, what did they use to generate it? That falls back into that chat we were having earlier about like the legality of how these things were trained and, you know, who actually owns it all. But
yeah, and is Suno coming and claiming royalties off of it because they've got 782,000 monthly listeners.
Yeah, it was up to like 1.4 million for a while. Like it was huge for a minute.
It's insane.
Yeah.
but yeah, technically with Suno's terms and conditions, I mean, they own it. So, you know, it's not a very good business model to go down. You could very easily build a whole AI persona off this thing and then have the company say, nope, that's ours. You owe us a check for, you know, $2 million or whatever the royalties are. So
Yeah.
it's a slippery slope for sure.
It's a slippery slope. It is an ever-going conversation, just I know, of kind of the debate of like where that line is, of like where is it, can it be considered really a human creation? Because legally, like you said, if somebody fully generates a song using something like AI, they can't really claim it as their own. But if something is aided by it, then they can have the copyright. And so I know that line is just ever evolving and shifting, and I guess we'll just see kind of as time goes on where the line's drawn.
Well, that's a good way to think of it. Is it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
Because you know we've all been using tools to help. You know, Rhyme Zone could be considered artificial intelligence. You know, I think the early songwriters who were pen and paper and maybe had a rhyming thesaurus or rhyming dictionary or whatever you call that. Might have looked down on, well, it's so easy. You can just punch it in Rhyme Zone. That's like cheating.
Yeah.
But it could be said the same. You know, that's really the same principle as what we're talking about here. So you kind of just have to look at it as a spectrum. And you want to be as far. So let's say the two ends of the spectrum are completely AI created, which Suno,
Sure.
I'd say that.
Yeah.
All the way to completely human created, no AI whatsoever, a dude with a guitar and a notepad. Somewhere in between, but to me, closer to the human side, the closer you can be to the human side with AI help is ultimately going to serve you in the long run, because nobody's going to be able to claim legality that they own it, that you know you want to tilt the spectrum as far towards you being the one who creates it and curates it and really just uses it as a tool rather than it creating the thing itself.
Sure. Yeah. To slightly pivot our conversation back to something you actually started touching on earlier, X, was just the use of kind of human voices or cloning human voices. Obviously, like we said, there's been some lawsuits in trying to figure out people who maybe did not consent to have their songs' voices used for things, but there have also been artists who have willingly trained AI intentionally on them. What are your guys' thoughts on the pros and cons of that? Why are artists doing it? Why might an artist not do it? Yeah, would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. You started to talk about for demo purposes it being helpful.
Yeah, I think for demo purposes it'd be helpful. I mean, depending on the style of music you're into, like collaboration's a huge part of like music making, like especially in the pop world, the hip hop world, like pretty much every song is like so and so featuring so and so.
Sure.
And they're getting paid. Like
Yeah.
so I would imagine the business mind of some of these people is like, how many more songs can I be featured on if I don't actually have to go do it? Like I could collaborate with someone on the other side of the planet who has an audience of like 2 billion people that no one where I am has ever heard of them. But I don't even have to travel. I can just literally be like, here's my model, go for it. The converse of that would be just the lack of control of what you're saying. Like you no longer get to control the words that are coming out of your mouth. Someone can just have you now say whatever. And whether that's lyrical content you might not agree with or you know, or whatever it is, but you do start to lose that control of like your voice isn't your own at that point. You've now given people permission to make things, create things with your expression to it, with almost like your brand put upon it, which I think is just it's a bold move. Like obviously, I'm not an artist, I'm not a singer or anything like that, but me personally, I would be so hesitant to give someone that kind of power over my voice because my thoughts are my own, my expression is my own, and I would just be really nervous that someone would say or speak something out or like just put something out that would reflect on me in a way that I wasn't comfortable with.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's. I mean, to me, it ultimately comes down to online. There's going to have to be some proof of humanity. I think, that sounds weird, but there will have to be a stamp, just like there's a blue check mark on Instagram or Twitter or any of these places, there's going to have to be a blue check mark version of this is verified human.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to work. Spotify's going to have to come up with some way to do that, to differentiate that. Probably using AI to detect other AI, which is a thing.
Yeah, schools are doing that.
Schools are doing that on papers, but we're just entering such a weird time where you're at some point you're going to have to prove this was human created, because the problem is you could almost envision a world where there are like bot farms that are just generating 1 million songs a day and calling that a new record label and them uploading all of them every day. So we're also we're all of a sudden going from 60,000 new songs uploaded to Spotify every day all the way to 600 million new songs updated to Spotify every day. That screws the business model up for everybody.
Yeah.
And so it's just a weird time. It's a very strange time. I'm not one to say like, oh, let's go back to the old ways, just because it's not realistic and the world's not gonna ever unlearn AI.
Yeah.
It's just we're gonna have to figure out how to navigate it and how to recognize it too.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I think it begs the question of just in light of that, in light of the fact that it's happening. It's going to continue. There's going to continue to be music. Obviously, there is fights for drawing ethical boundaries around stuff, but it is moving forward. What is your biggest advice to artists then who are trying to figure out, how do I keep my voice heard in the midst of, potentially 600 million songs being uploaded now as AI continues to just get better and more songs continue to get out? What's your biggest advice for artists in trying to stay personal, leaning into their brand still, again, just making sure they're still heard?
Yeah, well, I mean, the live show is as important as it ever has been, because that's when you prove that you're a real person, you're human. And even things like going to the edge of the stage and you unplugging the microphone and singing into the auditorium or the theater or the club or whatever, they're like, oh, that's actually a real person who can sing. And they're not just either lip syncing or using backing tracks or AI or whatever. Just finding ways to demonstrate that, I think the audience is going to respect and demand a lot more, because the authenticity piece of it is really what people are after. Like, I think if anybody was a super huge fan of an artist and they found out that wasn't actually a real human, they would feel kind of duped.
Right.
Most people. I know there's some people that just don't care.
Sure.
But most people who value art enough to go spend money to go to a concert, buy a ticket, buy merch, whatever way they want to support, they're probably going to demand some level of authenticity. And so I think leaning into live more than ever. I also think leaning into, I don't know, just leveraging AI in terms of, the hard thing with being an artist nowadays is like, how do you fill the content wheel that you have to be constantly running around? Every time you're producing and creating a new song, you've got to create 1,000 pieces of content to promote it. So that's where things, like, in my mind, I'm not an artist and I'm not on that TikTok train. I don't know how useful it is, but I would imagine it'd be useful as even just like a brainstorming partner for coming up with like a content calendar, helping you, brainstorm ideas, trends that are working. So I would encourage people to use it for the good things it can do to help you shortcut the things that you don't like to do, which no artist likes to do TikTok and all that stuff. It's a necessary evil to get the music out there, but use it for what it can do for you. But at the same time, realize people, want to connect with you as an artist. So I just think the authenticity piece is never going to change.
Yeah, that's great. And another kind of correlated part of the conversation then is just about job security in general. I know that's a big fear for songwriters, producers, artists, is in the midst of this, like you said, there's that important, kind of belief. I know something we've talked about is just that it will never be able to be fully replaced. But nonetheless, what are you seeing in regards to kind of job security? Are there certain parts of the industry that are being replaced? What parts aren't?
Yeah, I think to expect AI to come along and there not be massive job disruption is naive.
Sure.
I'm not just talking about music. I'm talking about every single industry.
Yeah.
I mean, in real estate, the job of the realtor, I would say 80% of it just got replaced by AI, because a lot of it was paperwork, it was admin, it was contracts, negotiations, those kinds of things. Obviously, you can even, I'll say that, you can even automate showings and have like a lockbox. And so yes, there will be massive job disruption, but the best way that I've heard to communicate about it is AI is not going to take your job. A human who knows how to use AI is going to take your job. And that's, to me, whether that's music, whether that's real estate, whether that's medicine, whether that's finance, legal, people who aren't learning to stay at the cutting edge and to leverage it are going to be left behind, because you're having each of us are having access to this super intelligence in the palm of our hand instantaneously. And somebody who doesn't use that is handicapping themselves.
Yep.
So what I will say is that mediocrity is going to easily get replaced, but greatness is going to stay. It's just it's more reason to have to just like double down and get really good at something. People who are track people out there, like learning to do making beats in Pro Tools and whatever, and doing tracks for demos, like you've got to get really good at it, because Suno is already better than most mediocre track people.
Right.
And so I think it's just going to weed out a lot of mediocrity, which in my mind isn't probably the worst thing. But I think you've got to just push for greatness, for innovation, for originality. That's the thing that AI doesn't do yet. It's still dependent on input data and learning things, and it's all derivative. So push for innovation, become amazing at your craft, and you won't be replaceable.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you were spot on. I mean, just speaking from the music side, like when things went from the analog world to the digital world, it was kind of this exact same thing. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, I'm not going to be able to work anymore," but it was everyone that kept working were the people that just embraced the change, and they were like, "Well, I got to figure this out because this is how we're all making records now. Tape's not a thing anymore." And just look at there's still, the record labels are still figuring out the streaming thing, but it's like, but they're adapting. Like, all you have to do is adapt, embrace the technology, embrace that, like, this is the reality. This is how the world is moving forwards. And like Seth was saying, get good at it, hone your craft, excel. And being originality, like having something you can connect with people on, because being, when I was growing up listening to music, I didn't just like music that I thought sounded good. I liked music that resonated with me. And to this day, I still enjoy songs that like have a meaning to me. Like when the kids are listening to stuff, none of that connects with me, because it's just like, this is just words. Like they're just saying words, because it's all like these TikTok trend songs and all this stuff that have like no meaning or whatever. It's just like sped up, and it's like, I still want that connection. So if you're able to establish that connection, whether it's in your songwriting or even just like as people in a profession where you have a relationship with someone else, wherever you can form that connection with people, I think that's just going to help you thrive and push your way forwards.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think, well, I guess jumping off of that, for people who are, maybe first kind of getting a grasp of all the different changes that are happening in AI, for the musician, the songwriter, the producer, who is like, what is my first step in the midst of all of this? There's so many different things going on. How do I move forward personally? What would be your guys' biggest advice to that person? Just regarding how to practically start moving forward in this world of AI.
I always say just, use AI to learn AI. I think that's the amazing thing about it now, is especially the voice models are really incredible. You can literally just have a conversation with it, and like, say you want to learn how to do anything, you literally hold it up and say, hey, give me a crash course on AI for music production, and then quiz me at the end. And you can literally just use AI to learn AI. So that's the first thing. The other thing is see how other people are using it. That's a big one, is like, how are people using Suno? Like, how are people using these Automy and laws. Like it's oftentimes it's the people using them in creative ways that they're not supposed to be using it. That's like, oh, that becomes a really interesting way to use it. So I think learning from AI and learning from other people. So you just can't be in a vacuum. Like you can't be, like you said, you got to be having relationships. You got to be connecting with other people. You got to be getting outside of your bubble.
Yeah, immerse yourself in it for sure. You know, like, and there's a lot of there's a lot of different paths of it. So don't overwhelm yourself, but definitely dip your toes in. Like, just don't have the anxiety of like, oh, it's just something I'm not going to deal with. It is what's happening. Just like Seth was saying, learn from other people, learn from AI, but immerse yourself in it. Don't be afraid of it. You got to embrace the tools sometimes. Change is hard.
Change is
But
hard.
it's going to be okay.
Yeah. One of you guys said earlier just a little bit about how with the rise of AI tools, it's actually helped you to be more creative, which I think is really interesting because I think that's counterintuitive to how a lot of people feel about the rise of AI. I think there's a big fear that with the rise of AI in music, it's going to just strip creativity from the process. So what would you guys have to say to that? Are we at risk of minimizing our creativity? Has it been able to help you be more creative? Just would love to hear more of your guys' thoughts on that.
I think as long as there's a human involved, there won't be a lack of creativity in it. I think that's the human element of the whole thing. I think anything that just helps streamline the process to where you can work more efficiently is a huge boon to you. Whether it's like before AI, you had like templates and stuff like that. The first time I made a template to where, oh, I don't have to route everything and recreate all this every single time. It's saving me an hour and a half worth of like doing all this technical jargon where I can now just like focus in on actually doing something fun and creative, or even just having like effects that I like to use. They're already here. Great. Yeah. And like Seth was saying earlier, now with the AI stuff, like having like curves AQ and all of that, like things that just took monotonous amounts of time, we don't have to dedicate brain power to that anymore. We can focus on what's going to make something unique. And it's also giving us options on how to make that unique and to find other things that work into our sonic like aesthetic, if you will, of like how we like to hear things and how we like to create things. It's giving us new avenues into just helping get there even faster, which I think is, it's a huge boon to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the question I would ask is, the tools are getting better, but are the songs? I think so many people listening to modern music would say no. There's a lot more of it, but there's a lot less depth to it. And I think that's why so many people, especially young listeners, even my kids being age 7 and 10, they love their station of choice when they get in my truck is either 50s gold, 60s gold, or they really like Elvis radio or Bluegrass Junction.
Okay.
And so it's just old stuff. And there's something in, I think, a lot of young listeners, and that's where guys like Zach Bryan and people in his style have rose up because they represent this which I could make the argument that I think his lyrics were written by ChatGPT anyway. Another case aside, but
Sure.
I think there's something to be said of like the old records that like when they were either just because it was on tape and they were really having to like slave away over their parts and they weren't able to edit and correct and perfect every little thing. There was humanity in it, and there was a real person mixing it. I think that's going to be the challenge now is with all these new tools, how do you make something sound more real? And that's hard to do. That's kind of in the production process, but in the songwriting process, I'm not afraid for lyricists anytime soon. That to me is the most obvious. Like you can tell when a lyric is written by AI and when it's actually written by a human. Like I've gone pretty deep down this rabbit trail just on myself, like experimenting with like writing songs using ChatGPT for lyrics and stuff, and it never gets, even half the way there.
Sure.
It just always feels like it was written by ChatGPT, which is so weird that you can sense that and feel that, but you can. And so I think humans are going to just by virtue of quality and originality and wanting new stuff, they're going to demand creativity because you have to be creative. to work with these tools to create something that a lot of people will want to consume. And so I'm not worried about it. I don't, I want to be clear. I don't love that this is the world that we're in and that AI is a thing. I don't love social media. There's a lot that I don't like about it, but it doesn't mean that I can't be a student of it and to be able to leverage it to do the thing that I really like to do, which is, for me, the AI thing is removing technical steps in the process that really weren't that creative in the first place. So, creativity is still going to be front and center.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Made It in Music podcast. And be sure to check out our other episodes where we unpack hundreds of hot topics with some of the top music industry pros, both here in Nashville and all over the world. Subscribe to make sure that you automatically get future episodes, and leave us a review if you loved it. It would really help us out. Or send an email to support@fullcirclemusic.com if you have ideas for how we can improve the show. If you would like to become a Songchasers member and attend our training sessions live, head over to joinsongchasers.com to learn more. You also get additional exclusive training from music industry professionals. You get our royalty-free custom tracks from Seth Mosley. You get song reviews from me and my team, and you get access to a custom social media network we created exclusively for songwriters and musicians. There's nothing else like it on the internet. Head to joinsongchasers.com to learn how to join, and check out madeitinmusic.com for more content and episodes from this podcast. See you in the next episode.